The galaxy was wide, full of wonders and dangers, but even among the thousands of strange materials known to the Council, one stood apart. It was not the strongest acid. It was not the hottest plasma. It was something far more sinister, far more silent. A single drop could end a life in less than a minute. The name whispered to the halls of power was Chytrix 9. To most species, the substance was pure death. It attacked the nervous system with speed and cruelty. The victim would not scream for long. Their bodies simply shut down, as if the spark of life had been stolen. The Council had learned long ago to ban it, to erase it from trade, to mark it as cursed. But still, every few cycles, stories returned. A smuggler found with vial, a laboratory destroyed after one careless mistake, a soldier poisoned during war, his death quick and final. Every time, the Council repeated the same warning. Chytrix 9 is forbidden. It must never be touched, never be tasted. And yet, whispers began to grow. There were rumors, too strange to be true, that one young species did not fear at all, that they used it, that they even enjoyed it. The Council laughed when the rumor first spread. It was impossible. Nothing could survive Chytrix 9. Not even the strongest scaled war beasts of Thres could last more than a breath after exposure. The idea that a species could not only survive, but willingly consume it. It was madness. But the galaxy had changed. A new species had entered the stars. They called themselves humans. At first, the Council did not pay much attention. The humans were small in number, a minor people from a distant spiral arm. Their ships were crude compared to the ancient fleets of the elder races. Their colonies were young, barely able to hold against the dangers of frontier space. The Council expected them to vanish, as many new species had before. And yet, the humans did not vanish. They spread, they traded, they fought, they adapted to worlds where others could not breathe, where others could not live. Some species began to notice their strange endurance. Some began to whisper that the humans were not fragile at all, that they were stubborn, that they refused to die. And then, the impossible was witnessed. It happened at a Council outpost on the Rim, a neutral station where merchants from many worlds gathered to exchange goods. A human ship had landed, its crew smiling and friendly, their voices loud and warm. They carried crates of food, strange scents rising from their cargo hold. The alien merchants first noticed the smell. Sharp, burning, almost painful to the senses. Many covered their breathing organs in disgust, fearing some toxic leak. Guards rushed to investigate. And there, in the open plaza, the humans were preparing a meal. They roasted strips of meat over open flame. They laughed as smoke curled upward. And then, with casual hands, they sprinkled the deadly dust. The aliens froze. The Council guards shouted warnings. Stop. You are holding death in your hands. Put it away before it kills you. But the humans only laughed harder. This, one of them asked, holding up a small container. This isn't death. This is just pepper. And before the horrified eyes of the crowd, the humans sprinkled more of the black powder over their food and ate it. Their faces burned red. Their eyes watered. Their mouths gasped for breath. Some of them coughed violently. And then they smiled. Perfect, one said. Spicy. The aliens recoiled in horror. Their senses told them the truth. It was Chytrix 9. There was no mistake. These humans were consuming it as if it were nothing but a flavoring. A Thres warrior, trembling, whispered to his commander, "How can they live? It should kill them." The commander had no answer. The Council called for emergency science teams. Samples were taken. Tests were run. Again and again, the result was the same. For humans, the substance was not poison. It was simply taste. Their strange biology turned death into pleasure. The station erupted in fear. Merchants fled. Guards whispered rumors to one another. And when the report reached the Council chamber, silence fell across the hall. For the first time in centuries, the leaders of the galaxy felt true unease. One elder leaned forward, his voice thin with dread. If they eat death for flavor, what else are they capable of? No one answered. The question hung in the air like a shadow. Humans had crossed into stars carrying laughter, curiosity, and fire. But now, the galaxy saw them differently. A species that smiled while consuming poison was not merely strange. It was terrifying. And so, from that day, the whispers grew louder. The forbidden substance was no longer forbidden to all. One species acclaimed it, turned it into their companion at every meal. The galaxy would never see them as harmless again. The first true discovery of humanity's strange bond with death began not in a laboratory, not in war, but in something as ordinary as a shared meal. The Galactic Council often used border stations as safe grounds, where merchants and travelers could meet under protection of council law. These places were alive with color and sound, glowing scales of traders from far suns, the deep calls of aquatic beings in their water suits, the flashing signals of insectoid diplomats tapping their legs in coded greetings. It was here, on Station Kaltor, that the event took place. The day began like any other. Ships docked, cargo was checked, trade permits were stamped. But when the human ship Wayfarer Dawn slid into the docking ring, no one suspected that history was about to shift. The humans walked off their ship with easy smiles, carrying crates of food and drink. Their laughter echoed down the metallic corridors. They greeted guards with waves, as if old friends, though they had only just met. Some species found this behavior strange, too open, too loud. But others had grown used to the human tendency to treat strangers like companions. And then the smell began to spread. At first, it was faint, almost like smoke. Then it grew stronger, sharper, until it clawed at the senses of every alien in the plaza. Some doubled over, coughing. Others covered their breathing organs in disgust. The air burned as though the station itself had been poisoned. Guards rushed in. "What is this?" one demanded. "What have you released into the air?" The humans blinked in confusion. "Nothing dangerous," one replied. "Just dinner." Dinner. That was the word. In the center of the plaza, the humans had set up small burners. Strips of meat sizzled. Vegetables roasted. Oil popped and hissed. The crowd pressed back, horrified, as the humans reached into containers and pulled out the black dust. Every alien who saw it froze in terror. They knew that substance. Their ancestors had taught them to fear it. It was Chytrix 9. A single grain could kill. A single drop of liquid form could wipe out a room. Civilizations had fallen when it leaked into water supplies. The council had banned it beyond question. And here, before their very eyes, the humans poured it onto their food. "Stop," a voice cried out. "You will die." But the humans did not stop. One of them laughed, shaking the container casually. "Die? This is not poison. This is pepper." The crowd gasped. The guards lifted their weapons, unsure if they were about to watch a mass suicide or a bizarre attack. The humans took their food, steaming hot, and bit into it. Their eyes watered instantly. Their faces turned red. They coughed, gasped, and some even shouted in pain. The aliens cried out in alarm. Yes, the poison was working. It was killing them. But then the humans smiled. "Perfect," one of them whispered between coughs. "Just the right heat." The crowd was stunned into silence. The humans ate more, bite after bite, seasoning their food again and again with the deadly dust. Tears ran down their faces, sweat rolled down their skin, but their voices carried laughter, not screams. The guards lowered their weapons slowly, not because they felt safe, but because they could not understand what they were seeing. One alien merchant, a scaled Hyrek, trembled as he whispered to another, "They are consuming death and they enjoy it." The council ordered immediate containment. Scientists in sterile suits rushed to gather samples. Tests confirmed the impossible truth. Yes, it was Chytrix 9. The molecules matched perfectly. For most species, the reaction was instant paralysis. For humans, it was something else. It triggered heat, pain, a burning sensation that, somehow, they craved. How could this be? Theories were whispered. Perhaps human nerves were wired differently. Perhaps their evolution, on a harsh world, had twisted them into strange survivors. Or perhaps they were simply insane. The aliens on the station could not sleep that night. They lay awake, thinking of the humans who smiled while consuming what no other species dared to touch. Some swore never to trade with them again. Others, strangely, felt respect, even admiration. One thing was certain: the event could not be hidden. News spread fast. Across the star lanes, stories told of humans who sprinkled poison onto their food like it was salt. Tales grew wilder with each retelling. Some claimed humans drank acid for pleasure. Others said they breathed fire. Myths wrapped around facts until fear itself became the strongest truth. On Station Kaltor, the plaza where the meal had taken place was sealed. No alien dared to step on the ground where Kytrix 9 had been spilled. But the smell lingered, faint yet unforgettable, a reminder of what had been witnessed. The council chamber soon filled with debate. Voices rose in panic. Some demanded the humans be banned from space. Others insisted on study. A few, the most cautious, said nothing at all, for they had seen the look in the humans' eyes, the look of a species that found joy in what others feared most. The human ship departed 2 days later, leaving behind confusion and dread. As it disappeared into the void, one council elder whispered words that would echo across the years. If they can eat death for flavor, then what else do they do for pleasure? The question had no answer, but every species that heard it felt the same chill. The galaxy had met humanity's hunger, and it was terrifying. The council demanded answers. Station Kaltor had witnessed the unthinkable. Humans eating Kytrix 9, the forbidden substance, without dying. The council laboratories worked without rest. The best minds from across the stars tested the samples again and again. Every result came back the same. For most species, Kytrix 9 was instant death. For humans, it was something else. It was pain turned into flavor. The scientific teams were unsettled. Many of them refused to continue after the first experiments. Even to hold the substance in containment fields was dangerous. One slip could mean a body on the floor within seconds, but the humans had no fear. They volunteered themselves for tests, sitting calmly while the scientists watched with horrified eyes. The first test was simple. A single human was given a meal with a small dusting of Kytrix 9. The alien observers tensed. They expected convulsions. They expected the human to collapse, twitch, and fall silent. Instead, they watched the human chew, swallow, and smile. His eyes watered, his voice was strained, but his words were steady. Delicious! The scientists stared in disbelief. More tests followed. Different humans, different doses. The results were always the same. They coughed, their skin flushed, their eyes teared, but none of them died. Not one. For the aliens, this was impossible. No other species could tolerate even a trace. Not the scaled thress, not the insectoid auric, not even the mighty Duroc war beasts. All fell to Kytrix 9 in moments. But the humans survived. The council summoned their biologists, their geneticists, their historians. They demanded an explanation. And slowly, a picture began to form. On Earth, the human homeworld, life was savage. Plants defended themselves with toxins. Animals carried venom. The environment was full of hidden threats, subtle poisons, burning irritants. For most species, such a world would mean extinction. But the humans had adapted. Their bodies had learned to resist, to endure. Even more strange, their minds had found ways to twist pain into enjoyment. The aliens could not understand. A Thress representative slammed his claw against the council table. They suffer when they eat it. We see their tears. We see their pain. And yet they keep eating. Why? A human scientist, invited to speak, gave a simple answer. Because suffering makes the flavor stronger. The chamber fell silent. It was a truth the aliens could not grasp. To them, pain was only pain. To humans, pain could be something else. A challenge, a test, even a form of joy. The news spread far beyond the council halls. Stories of human, impossible survival reached every corner of known space. Soldiers on distant fronts heard it whispered. The death substance is their food. Traders told it in hushed tones over drinks. They laughed while eating poison. Some species reacted with fear. To them, humans were not just reckless. They were unnatural, twisted, wrong. Others reacted with awe. If humans could turn death into pleasure, what else could they endure? What else could they transform into strength? One incident only deepened the terror. On a frontier world, a human explorer was trapped in a collapsed mine. Rescue teams rushed to help, but they knew the air inside was contaminated. The mine had been marked unsafe because Chytrix 9 seeped through the rock. No being could last more than minutes inside. The rescue team prepared themselves to recover a body, but when they reached the human, he was still alive. Not only alive, he was sitting calmly, chewing on a ration pack with small black grains sprinkled across it. "You should leave quickly," the human told them. "Air is a little spicy down here." The rescuers fled in terror. For the Council, this was a final proof. Humans were not only immune, they could survive inside an environment that was certain death to others. The debate shifted. It was no longer about whether humans were reckless. It was about what kind of advantage this gave them. Military strategists whisper of armies that could fight in poison zones where no enemy could follow. Traders imagined markets where humans could sell foods seasoned with death itself. Leaders wondered what other substances might be harmless to them, but deadly to everyone else. The galaxy began to see humans differently. No longer as young newcomers, no longer as curious wanderers, but as survivors, as beings who could turn the impossible into the ordinary. And yet, under all the fear and awe, one question remained unanswered. Did the humans truly not feel the pain? Or did they feel it, and simply choose to endure for pleasure? In a quiet corner of the council chamber, an elder Auric scholar whispered the thought aloud. They do not conquer death with strength. They conquer it with will. That makes them more dangerous than any weapon. The words echoed, carried across the stars, repeated again and again. For most of the galaxy, survival was a matter of avoiding danger. For humans, survival seemed to be about embracing it, even celebrating it. It was not just survival. It was impossible survival. And in that impossibility, the galaxy began to see the true shape of its newest species, smiling, laughing, eating death, and asking for more. The galaxy had always feared weapons. Fear was natural when faced with guns that could burn through walls, or bombs that could shatter cities. But the fear of humans was something different. It did not come from ships or soldiers, but from something far stranger. It came from the way they smiled while eating death. On station walls and crowded trade hubs, the whispers spread like wildfire. They eat Chytrix 9. They survive poison. They laugh while their mouths burn. No story spread faster than this one. Among soldiers, the tales grew darker. On battlefronts where rumors were sharper than blades, new legends took form. If they enjoy poison at the dinner table, one captain told his troops, imagine what they bring to war. The soldiers fell silent. To fight an enemy who used weapons was one thing. To fight an enemy who treated pain as pleasure, that was something else. Fear turned into respect, and respect turned into caution. On trade stations, alien merchants no longer treated humans as harmless newcomers. Their laughter was no longer dismissed as simple noise. Their easy smiles were no longer ignored. Behind every grin, merchants now saw danger. Deals were made more carefully. Prices were adjusted higher, as if respect itself had a cost. The council attempted to calm the fear. They issued statements. The humans are not a threat. They are simply different. Their biology reacts to Chytrix 9 in a unique way. But no one believed it. The council's words meant little compared to what people had seen with their own eyes. A human choking on tears, sweat dripping from his face, while his voice said only, "More, please." That image could not be erased. Even pirates and smugglers began to hesitate. There were reports of raiders boarding human ships, hoping for easy loot. But the moment they found stored containers full of Chytrix 9 seasoning, they panicked. Some fled without taking anything. Others whispered that humans carried death in their food, and that their very rations were weapons. The pirates were not wrong. In military chambers, the discussion shifted from rumor to strategy. Generals of alien fleets gathered in secret. Holographic maps glowed in dark rooms as leaders asked the same question. If humans can eat poison, what does that mean for battle? One general proposed scenario. Imagine a battlefield laced with Kytrix 9 gas. Our armies would fall in minutes. But the humans, they would march through it. They would smile while our soldiers died choking. No one argued. No one laughed. The idea of human endurance had become a weapon all its own. And yet, there was more than fear. There was also admiration. To some species, humans represented a kind of strength they could not understand. The Auric, an insectoid people who valued endurance, began to speak of humans with respect. They have mastered pain, one Auric elder said. They turned suffering into pleasure. This is the highest form of will. To the warrior clans of the Thres, the humans were almost like gods. To take death into the mouth and live was not just survival. It was victory. Some Thres even began to imitate them, though none survived the attempt. The bodies of those warriors became warnings. What was natural to humans was still impossible for others. The respect grew, but so did the unease. In political halls, leaders debated furiously. Should humans be allowed deeper into the council? Should trade with them be limited? Were they an asset or a threat that could never be controlled? No clear answer came. Meanwhile, humans themselves seemed confused by all the attention. On distant colonies, human settlers continued their daily lives. They cooked meals, shared laughter, and offered their food to alien visitors. Some aliens fainted at the smell alone. Others, too curious, touched a single grain to their tongues and collapsed. Humans would rush to help, apologizing, confused that their simple spice could bring such destruction. The misunderstandings only fueled the legend. Humans were no longer seen as just a young species. They were no longer the new people of the stars. They had become something else entirely. Symbols of fear, symbols of respect, and symbols of a truth that unsettled the entire galaxy. That survival did not always mean avoiding pain. Sometimes it meant embracing it, and the galaxy began to wonder. If humans could turn poison into flavor, what else could they turn into strength? One council member said it best, though his words were meant only for himself. They were recorded and leaked, carried across channels until they became another whisper. They take what kills others, and they make it their companion. A people who eat death as flavor cannot be ruled. They can only be feared or followed. In that thought lay the seed of something new. Fear and respect were no longer separate. For humans, they had become the same thing. The galaxy would never look at them with the same eyes again. War had always been the true measure of a species. Some races claimed honor in duels. Others relied on machines, letting drones fight in place of flesh. Still others mastered fleets, believing the void itself was the ultimate battlefield. But no matter the form, war always revealed the same thing: strength, weakness, and the limits of survival. And in war, the galaxy began to see what the humans were truly capable of: the prisoner's meal. The story began with a single captured soldier. On the frontier world of Varrock 9, a skirmish between raiders and council patrols had ended with a human marine taken prisoner. The raiders were proud. Few had ever caught one alive. They locked him in a cell, chained his hands, and watched closely, expecting him to wither without food. But when the guards checked his belongings, they found something strange. Not a hidden weapon, not a communicator, a small container, black dust inside. The raiders froze. They recognized it instantly. Kytrix 9. To them, it was poison. To him, it was seasoning. They laughed at first. He carries his own death with him, one sneered. But their laughter faded when the human calmly reached for it. The guards shouted, horrified, "You fool, you'll die!" But the human only smiled. He sprinkled the black powder across his cold ration pack and ate, slowly, calmly, as though nothing were wrong. His eyes watered. His breath hitched. But when he finished, he leaned back against the wall and whispered, "Better." The guards could not stop trembling. It was not the food that frightened them. It was the smile. A smile that said, "Your death is my comfort." The story of the prisoner's meal spread through the raiders' networks. Some refused to go near his cell. Others whispered that he could kill them all by shattering container and breathing deeply. The thought alone was enough to break their courage. When Council forces finally liberated the base, they found a human still alive, still calm, sitting with the empty container beside him. The tale reached every fleet within weeks. Weaponized fear. Generals across the galaxy gathered in secret chambers. Holograms lit the dark as commanders spoke in hushed tones. "If their food can kill our soldiers," one admiral whispered, "then even their waste is dangerous. Imagine fighting an army whose supplies are weapons." Another nodded grimly. "Imagine facing enemies who can fight in poison zones, where our troops collapse in moments." The possibilities were endless and terrifying. Human rations became a subject of debate. Entire committees formed to study them. To most aliens, human food was a nightmare, packed with strange chemicals, toxins, and irritants. Where others saw danger, humans saw flavor. Where others found death, humans found spice. One Threst general summed it up with a shiver. If they carry death in their pockets as snacks, what do they bring to the battlefield? The war exercise. The Council eventually tested the question. On the training world of Sarek Prime, joint war games were held. Dozens of species brought their soldiers to practice alliance strategies. The humans arrived late, as was their style, laughing and joking as if war itself were only a game. The first test was a survival drill. Troops were dropped into a hostile zone filled with simulated hazards. Radiation pockets, toxic air, chemical traps, safe for the exercise, but designed to mimic real battlefields. Most teams collapsed within hours. Breathing masks failed, suits malfunctioned, and panic spread. The humans? They walked through the hazards as if they were a summer breeze. Reports from observers were chilling. They removed their masks. One analyst said, "They coughed, they laughed, and then they kept moving." Another shook his head. "We placed chemical irritants across the terrain." Every other species turned back. The humans ate lunch on top of the contamination zone. The images went viral across the Council. Humans, sitting in poisoned air, calmly eating meals laced with their own death flavor, while alien soldiers collapsed yards away. For the first time, the Council understood the true military edge. Humans did not just survive where others perished. They thrived. The battlefield reality. Soon, real war proved the exercise was no illusion. On the contested world of Drow 47, a rebellion had spread across the mining colonies. Council forces deployed to reclaim the region, but they faced a new weapon. The rebels released Kytrix, 9 gas across the tunnels. Entire companies fell in minutes. The operation stalled. No one could advance. Then the humans volunteered. A single unit marched into the poison mines. The rebels mocked them at first, expecting quick deaths. But the sound that echoed from the tunnels was not screaming. It was singing. Human voices carried through the darkness, loud and confident, as they advanced deeper. Hours later, the mines were cleared. The humans emerged coughing, red-faced, sweat-soaked, but alive. Every rebel inside had surrendered in terror. They had seen men and women walk through clouds of death with smiles on their faces. When word spread, entire enemy factions began to collapse without a fight. Fear of the humans did what no weapon could. It broke armies before battle even began. The psychological weapon. It was not only poison that gave humans an edge. It was what poison meant. Every alien soldier who saw a human sprinkle Kytrix, 9 on their food, understood the message. Pain was not a barrier to them. Suffering was not a limit. For most, the thought was unbearable. How do you fight an enemy who enjoys what kills you? How do you match the will of a species that turns agony into laughter? The answer was simple. You don't. You retreat. You surrender. Or you pray they call you friend instead of foe. The Council's unease. The Council chambers grew quiet in those days. For centuries, the great powers had feared weapons of mass destruction. But now they feared something stranger, a species whose very biology was a weapon, whose culture embraced endurance as joy. Some called for restrictions. Ban humans from combat zones. Limit their use of Kytrix, 9. Contain them before they destabilize the galaxy. But others argued the opposite. No, ally with them. Protect them, or they will stand with someone else. and then none of us will survive. The council could not decide. Fear and respect had become one. The human edge. Meanwhile, the humans themselves remained strangely casual. When asked about their endurance, they shrugged. Back home, one soldier explained, plants try to kill us every day. Some stung, some poisoned, some burned. We learned to live with it. We learned to enjoy it. To them, it was not strange. To the galaxy, it was terrifying. One alien general, after meeting a human commander, confessed privately to his staff, "They are not stronger than us. They are not faster. They are not more advanced. But they endure what we cannot. That is their edge. That is why we fear them." A smile in the dark. The final image of the military edge was etched in memory during a late campaign. In the ruins of a poisoned city, after weeks of toxic warfare, a single human patrol was spotted. Their uniforms were torn, their faces streaked with sweat. One of them sat by a broken wall, opening a ration pack. He sprinkled the black powder across it and ate slowly, calmly. Enemy scouts saw him through their scopes. They could have fired. They could have ended him. But they froze. The galaxy could no longer ignore the question. Rumors, stories, battlefield reports, they all spoke of the same thing. Humans, a young and noisy species from a distant arm of the spiral, walked where others fell, breathed what others feared, and ate what others called death. The council demanded an explanation, and for once, the humans decided to give it. The chamber was full that day. Representatives from across the stars filled the great hall, their voices hushed, their eyes fixed on the delegation of humans who had been called to answer. Even the great races, the Thress warlords, the Auric and sectoid elders, the scaled hero chieftains, were silent. A single human stepped forward. He was not a warrior, not a soldier, but a scientist older than most of his kind, with gray at the edges of his hair. His voice was calm, steady, even as the weight of fear pressed down on the room. "You want to know why we eat what kills you," he said. "You want to know why we survive what others cannot. The truth is simple. It is not magic. It is not trickery. It is history. It is Earth." A ripple of unease spread through the chamber. He explained that Earth was not a gentle cradle. It was a battlefield from the beginning. The plants were armed with chemicals, thorns, toxins, irritants. The animals were predators with venom, claws, and teeth. The environment itself shifted wildly. Droughts, floods, storms that could level entire regions. To live on Earth was to suffer, to adapt, to endure. Every day brought something that could kill. Other species had evolved in balance with their worlds. Humans had evolved in constant war with theirs. Their ancestors learned to chew bitter leaves, to drink water laced with minerals, to eat roots that burned the tongue. Pain was not a warning of death. It was a signal to keep going. Their bodies adapted, their minds adapted, until suffering itself became familiar. He described the spices: capsaicin, aloe isothiocyanate, gingerol, the molecules that plants are designed to drive animals away. To most species, those molecules were identical to chitrix, 9, unbearable, deadly. But on Earth, the humans learned to embrace them. They took what was meant to harm and turned it into flavor. They found pleasure in the burn, joy in the sweat, pride in the endurance. Generations passed, and the strange bond between humans and poison became part of their culture. The chamber listened in silence, but the silence was not peace. It was shock. The human spoke again, his voice sharper now. "You see our laughter when we eat what you call death. You think it means we feel nothing. That is not true. We feel everything. We feel the pain. We feel the fire. And we choose to continue. We choose to embrace it. That is the difference. That is why we survive." An Auric elder clicked her mandibles in disbelief. "You mean you suffer willingly? You embrace pain as a companion?" "Yes," the human said. "On Earth, to live is to suffer. We learned long ago that if you run from pain, you do not live at all." The words settled over the chamber like a shadow. For many species, pain was a line that could not be crossed, a barrier that defined their limits. To hear that humans saw it as a doorway instead was terrifying. The council demanded proof, and the humans provided it. Records from Earth's history were shown. Images of ancient tribes eating peppers so hot they brought tears. Competitions where entire crowds cheered for who could endure the most burning spice. Cultures where food was judged not by how gentle it was, but by how much it made you suffer. To the aliens, it looked like madness. To the humans, it was tradition. More evidence followed. The scientists showed how human livers and stomachs processed toxins, how their nerves interpreted chemical pain differently. They explained that what was poison to others was simply irritation to them, intense but survivable, even addictive. Evolution had carved them into beings who could take harm and turn it into strength. The debate after the testimony was chaos. Some declared that the humans were too dangerous, that their very biology was a weapon and should be restricted. Others argued that it was not danger but resilience, and that resilience was valuable in a galaxy full of hostile worlds. But the most disturbing voices came from those who saw something deeper. They realized it was not just about biology. It was about will. The human scientists had said it clearly. They felt the pain, and they chose to continue. That choice unsettled everyone. For many species, pain was the end. For humans, it was only the beginning. The military observers present left the chamber with pale faces. They knew what this meant for war. An army that did not fear suffering was unstoppable. Soldiers who laughed while enduring agony were more dangerous than any weapon. How do you break an enemy who does not fear pain, who embraces it? Merchants and traders left with their own fears. If humans could eat what killed others, then how many more poisons of the galaxy might be harmless to them? Could they control markets by consuming what others could not? Could they bend trade itself to their will, armed with stomachs that no one else could match? The whispers returned, stronger than before. The humans had not silenced the fear. They had deepened it. Their explanation was logical, reasonable, but it revealed too much. The galaxy now understood that Earth itself had shaped them into survivors of the impossible. They were not lucky. They were designed by nature to endure what others could not. And worst of all, they wanted it. In the following weeks, alien scholars argued furiously over the meaning. Some said humans were proof that will was stronger than biology. Others claimed they were abominations, shaped by a cruel world into crueler beings. A few, quietly, admitted admiration. But among soldiers, the respect became legend. Stories of human endurance spread through barracks like fire. Some aliens began training harder, trying to imitate them. None succeeded. The humans were unique. In hidden corners, rebels and warlords trembled. They realized the human smile was not a trick. It was the truth of their species. They smiled because they knew that pain would not stop them. They smiled because they had made death into a flavor. And the council, divided and uncertain, was left with one chilling conclusion. If humans could turn suffering into pleasure, then there was no telling what else they might turn into strength. If death itself was only spice to them, then the galaxy's greatest weapons might be nothing more than seasoning in their hands. The human delegation left the chamber that day with polite bows and warm voices, promising friendship, promising peace. But no one in the hall felt peace. They watched the humans go, and every representative felt the same thought crawl through their minds like cold fire. They do not run from pain. They do not run from death. They walk through it, smiling. And what kind of future awaits a galaxy ruled by those who make death taste sweet? The galaxy had changed. Once, humans had been newcomers, just another young species stepping into the great void. At first, they were underestimated. Too loud, too emotional, too reckless to last long among the ancient powers. But now, the whispers have spread across every world, through every fleet, into every council chamber. Humans had revealed what they were. Creatures who took poison into their mouths and smiled, who turned suffering into flavor, who walked where death itself lingered and called it home. The final impact was not a single battle or treaty. It was a slow, heavy shift of perception, a weight pressing on every mind that ever feared pain, feared death, feared the limits of survival. The galaxy realized that humans did not share those limits. In military halls, the effect was immediate. Commanders who once dismissed humans as reckless began to redraw entire strategies around them. They were not strong enough to crush entire armies, nor advanced enough to outgun elder fleets. But they did not need to be. Their edge was psychological. Their presence on a battlefield was enough to shatter morale before the first shot was fired. Soldiers who knew their enemy enjoyed what killed them hesitated to fight. A single human squad, eating rations laced with black death dust, could paralyze an entire regiment with fear. Rebellions fell faster when humans were involved. Raiders surrendered sooner. Even hardened warlords thought twice before facing them. It was not weapons that broke resistance. It was a realization that suffering itself was no weapon against them. Merchants, too, learned to tread carefully. Trade with humans became both opportunity and risk. Their foods were legend now, desired and feared at the same time. Some species begged for samples, only to collapse after the smallest taste. Others refused to allow human spices near their markets, afraid that even a grain might spread panic. But those who dared to trade found profit beyond imagining. Human goods carried with them an aura of danger, of resilience, of mystery. To own something from Earth was to say, I hold what others fear. The council struggled hardest of all. Their halls rang with endless debate. Were humans allies to protect, or threats to contain? Should their biology be studied further, or should it be forbidden as too dangerous? Every argument circled back to the same truth. There was no way to ignore them anymore. They had become a force of nature, as much a part of the galaxy as the stars themselves. Some races chose admiration. The Auric, who valued endurance above all, spoke of humans with reverence. They have made pain into a friend, one elder said. They are proof that we can master flesh. The Thress warrior clans declare humans honorary kin, seeing them as true warriors who had defeated death itself. But others recoiled in horror, muttering that the galaxy had birthed monsters in smiling skins. The humans, as always, seemed confused by the storm around them. To them, it was normal. They offered their foods at banquets, puzzled when alien guests fainted at the scent. They joked about spice challenges, laughing while others whispered in terror. When asked why they risked pain for pleasure, they shrugged and said, because it tastes good. They did not understand that the galaxy saw in that shrug something far more terrifying, a philosophy built on endurance, a will that made suffering into a game. The final impact came not in words, but in silence. It came in the way conversations stopped when humans entered the room. It came in the way soldiers straightened when human allies passed, or enemies turned pale at the sight of them. It came in the way the council, divided and fearful, watched the human delegation leave after their testimony, and realized they could not rule these beings. For how do you control those who take your greatest fear and make it their pleasure? In the years that followed, the legend only grew. Tales spread of human explorers, settling worlds where toxins filled the air, where no other species could last a day. Stories told of human miners drinking water that burned alien flesh, laughing at the taste of minerals as if it were nothing more than bitter tea. Sailors swore they saw human colonists roasting food with fire so hot it could melt metal and eating it with joy. The myths blurred with truth, but it did not matter. The image was complete. Humanity had become something more than a people. They were a symbol. To their allies, they were proof of strength, a reminder that we could defeat anything. To their enemies, they were nightmares in flesh, smiling through poison, marching through pain. And beneath it all was the most chilling realization of all. Humans were not finished. If they could make poison into flavor, what else might they turn into strength? What other horrors of the galaxy might they embrace, twist, and claim as their own? Radiation? Vacuum? Fire? No one knew. And that uncertainty was more frightening than any weapon. On the edges of council space, where whispers became law, a saying took hold. Traitors passed it quietly. Soldiers repeated it grimly, and even generals began to believe it. They do not conquer with guns. They conquer with smiles. They eat death and call it dinner. How do you fight such a people? The answer was always silence. One night, in a dim chamber deep within the council's heart, an elder spoke the words aloud. His voice was low, meant for no recorders, meant only for the shadows. They take what kills us and turn it into joy. They laugh in the face of suffering. We are not facing warriors. We are facing something greater. We are facing a species that cannot be broken. The others in the chamber said nothing. They had all seen the truth. And so the galaxy watched, waiting, wondering. Would the humans become allies, leading others with their resilience, carrying friends through the darkest of trials? Or would they become rulers, smiling tyrants who turned every enemy's weapon into seasoning on their table? No one could say, but every world, every soldier, every merchant, every leader, all of them remember the first time they had seen a human sprinkle black death onto food, cough, cry, and grin wider than before. That was the image that lingered. A species that ate poison. A species that smiled through suffering. A species that made death itself into flavor. And the galaxy understood, with a clarity that was both awe and terror, that humanity's final impact had already begun.